Oh yeah, just a couple of things to sort out in tutorial two before we go on to tutorial three. Now I might have accidentally forgot to mention a couple of things in the last video. It was getting quite long, wasn't it? But we did mention the Solution Explorer, and you're probably thinking, well, what's that about? So if I drag the properties bar down a little bit, you'll see that there's tutorial two, so that's the name of our project we set up. This is form one, which is this right here, and in our little arrow there, you've also got form one, which is the code here. So, for example, if you by accident close that down and thought, oh my God, how do I get that back? It's gone. You can literally just double click on it back on there and it'll reappear so you can do whatever you need to do as well. The only other thing I want to kind of point out before we go into tutorial two, now we set this up when we saved it, when we first got up and running. So in tutorial two, so this is the area I saved it on my PC. So if I go into there, there is a tutorial two folder, this little VS thing here, and this is the project. So if I was coming in to open up Visual Studio and find my project that way, that's fine. But if you kind of like me and like to go through the File Explorer or the Windows Explorer and find it, you literally double click this, add a tutorial2.sln file, and it'll load up like this here, like we've got on the screen. And the other thing I want to point out as well, within this tutorial2 folder, within the bin, within the debug, within that one as well, whatever that one's called, you've got this application. So if I double click on tutorial2 application, it actually loads up this then, which we actually made in the last one. So you don't need to have Visual Studio open to be able to do this. You can literally just open up that project and it will run as you intended to. So this is the kind of thing you would give to a client if you've made something for them, if that makes sense. Right then, on to tutorial three. So then, tutorial three. Now there are three activities within this. Forget about number two there. It's actually the one at the top and two and three here. And there are some extension tasks which I'm going to ask you to do yourself a little bit later on. But the three things I want us to do, first of all, we're going to look at this one here. I've made a tutorial three file. I've got a text box. I've got a button which I've changed the cursor on as well. And as you can see, I've changed the background color because I hate the default colors, which I might have already said once or twice. So what we're now going to introduce as well from our toolbox is a label. Now, as I said to you, I can see label right there. But say, for example, I didn't want to have to go searching through it. I can just type it in at the top there, and then I can find I don't know what a link label is, actually. That might be interesting. I got a feeling that's probably a hyperlink of some sort. So I'm going to double click label. And the difference between a label and a text box is a label could be just a title of some sort. It's not something you can actually click on and type into like you can when you press play with a text box. But what we're going to try to do is we're going to type something in the text box, and when we press the button, whatever's in that text box will appear where it says label one. It's actually going to overwrite those words there then. Okay. So all I'm going to do, just bear with me a second. Sorry, I had to sneeze. So I'm going to double click on our press button, which will then generate this code here for us. So it says button one click, and then across here it says button one click as well. So we just want to make sure that when we click on it does this. And all we're going to say is our label, and I haven't actually checked this actually a minute. So as I'm starting to type in label, yeah, so label one because I didn't give it a name. I'm really bad at that. I need to start doing that. Dot text. And as you said before, when you press dot, it gives you tons of things you can actually do for it. So it's well worth scrolling through to go, oh, all right, I didn't realize that I can make this label, make it do this, and make it do that type of thing. But anyway, for the time being, we want it so the text actually appears to be whatever we've typed in the text box. Now, in the previous tutorial, I did this thing of speech marks, and then basically a kind of we typed in there what we wanted to appear in there. But this time, we actually wanted to take what is currently in the text box. So I'm going to start typing in text box one again. And I'm going to type in text like we did earlier with a capital T. I don't know if I want to put text like that actually. No, I'm not 100% sure if this is going to work. But in theory, what that basically says is label one.text will change to whatever is in the text box. I'm hoping that'll work. I'm hoping that'll work. Now, the other thing I want to point out as well, I find it hard to kind of read the font as it is there because it's quite small. So I actually increase the size of it so it's a lot easier to read. Now, it gets a bit annoying when you've got lots of code, but in terms of like me as a teacher looking over your shoulder, it's a lot easier for me to see if there's any errors rather than kind of getting my face right up against your screen. That's a bit weird thing to say, I know, but that's just something to point out as well, guys. So if I press play, And let's see what happens. So this is the first time I've pressed play on this, so I don't know where it is. There it is. So at this stage, if I press the press button, then the label disappears, but it doesn't actually. It just takes the text what was in here and it actually puts it in place of the text for label one. So if we press it again, then it appears there. Right then, so that's part one sorted. So let's have a look at part two. Now, part two is basically, let's have a look at what it says here. Write a program which has 4 buttons on it, and when we click on those buttons, it will change the background color of a form to match whatever the color is on those buttons then. So there might be a button which is blue, there might be a button which is red. So when I click on red, it'll make the background color go to red. So rather than kind of making a new project altogether, what we're actually going to do at this point, we're just going to go to, I think it is project and add form there, add form windows. And what it does then, it'll say to me, well, what type of form is it you want? And I think that's what the one I want anyway, the default one which appears there. I can't see anything else which I want it to do. And it's saying, what do I want to call it? So form two. So we'll leave it as form two for the time being because I can't actually think of a proper name to give it. And when we press add, then you can see over here on the right hand side, look, we did have form one, which is the one we just had, which is this guy here we've been working on. I'm actually going to close that down so we don't need it anymore. Same code. And we've also got form two. So this is form two here. So bear with me a second while I add 4 buttons. So I'm just going to pause this. And you can, it's an easier thing for you to do yourselves, but hold on a second. So there I've got my 3 of my 4 buttons. I haven't done the fourth one on purpose just to show you something, but before I do, each of these buttons are labeled, so green, red, and blue. And what you'll notice as well down here, where it's got the text, so I scroll up, you can see the text, so I changed it to green then, as it appears there. You'll notice where it says green button, and all I did was scroll down and change it to green button there, and I've done the same for red, I've done the same for blue as well. As things get busier on your forms, you'll need to start doing that because it's a lot easier to figure out what things are rather than button one, button two, button three, and trying to relate to those in the code in particular then. But the reason I didn't do my fourth one is because I just want to kind of show you that you can copy Control C and Control V, and then we'll basically copy that button as it is. And it should, I haven't actually done the cursor thing on it, I just realized, but any property you've kind of like associated with the one you've copied will be brought across onto this one. Apart from the name, I need to change as well because otherwise you can't have 2 blue buttons because they'll get confused. So this one will be called yellow button. And a little bit further up, I will change it so it says yellow, like so. And then I will just drag and drop it into the position there. And what's nice as well on the Visual Studio, it kind of helps you line things up. I'm a bit particular like that anyway. Right, so the green button, we're going to code the green button. So when I click on it, it will change the background color of our form to green. And we do the same for red, blue, and yellow as well. So if I double click on green, it will take me to my code. And I am going to start typing in a bit of code in, which I will explain once I have completed it. So it's me dot back color, and it's back color, well, color spelled the American way, so no U in there at all. And we're basically going to say that we are changing it to color dot, and you'll notice that there are loads of different colors. So if I start typing in green, you'll see that there is green, there's green yellow, there's dark olive green, etc., etc., etc. as well. But that's basically what's going to happen when I click on the green button. So just to explain the code here, now the me part is basically referring to form two. So anything you want to change on the form, like the size of the form, or the opacity of the form, the color of it, the width of it, the height of it, etc., etc., you refer to it as me. Okay, as in I'm on that form at the moment and I want that to change. And hopefully when I press play, what will happen is when I press the green button, the background color of the form should turn to green if we can get to that form. So at the moment, you notice that this is opened up what we were doing a bit earlier in the video. So this is the bit when we clicked on press and it changed the label. That's because it's loading up the first form within our window, which is great. But it's not actually, not for us anyway, because we wanted to open up form number 2. So to fix that, you just go to view, you don't go to view at all. You go to project, you go to tutorial free properties where we were earlier. Well, actually, we haven't been to this tutorial. We were in the project and add form, didn't we? But anyway, on project and tutorial free properties, on the very first part, you're just going to scroll down to where it says, Where's it to? Startup object. Now you'll see that it's set as form 1, so we just need to change it to form 2 because that's how we want it to load to see if that works. So if I just press play, and I don't think I need to save anything, I think it does a no, I do need to save it because it wouldn't let me do it. Yeah, okay, open up the other one. So if I close it, I think it automatically saves. When I press play, it should open up that second form. Great. So when I press green, it changes the background to green. So I need you guys to do the same for the red button, for the blue button, and in fact, you can use whatever colors you want, can't you? It doesn't have to be mine at all, the ones I've got there. So you can choose so those 4 buttons work. So now we're going to go on to part 3. Bear with me a second. Right, so part 3. So it's number 4 basically on this sheet here. Part 3 is all about getting the text from one text box and adding it to a text on a second text box and making it appear in a third text box. That's called constant. I can't say that word. We're basically going to merge 2 text boxes together into one. So I have made a third form. So I went through the process we did earlier of going to project, add form, and I've also changed the property so this will load up straight away. So if I press play, this will be the form which loads up like we kind of covered a moment ago. And I've just tidied this up a bit over here just by minimizing these things here, form 1 and form 2, so I can kind of see what I need to see. Not that I kind of going to make a big deal of that, but I just like things being tidy. But anyway, on our merge button, because I can't say that word, like I said, and I don't think it fit in this button anyway, we're just going to double click on it so it loads up another one of these. So again, default wise, it always sets the button 1.click, and we are going to be talking about some point about changing that. So you can have like if you hover over a button, something happens, or if you leave a button, something happens. But that's kind of like to come. So the idea is in our text box 3, which is this guy down here on his own, text box 3, we're going to take what's in text box number 1, and we're also going to add in what's in text box number 2. So double click on merge again to bring us back to that point, or I could have just clicked on now, probably be a better way to do it. But in text box number 3, and you can see they're all listed here, I'm going to set the text so it is the content of text box number 1 dot text, and that kind of works easily enough, doesn't it? So that will take what's in text box 1 and put it in text box number 3. Now, to get the content of text box 2 to be added to this, we're going to do the same line again, pretty much, text box 3 dot text. But it's not actually going to be dot text this time. It's going to be dot append text. Append means basically add to something. And what we're going to do, we're going to add the content of text box 2. Now, I haven't tested this, and I know I always say this, but I'm really not sure if this is going to work or not. But like I said, what this does, it takes what's in text box number 1 into text box number 3, and then it will also add what's in text box number 2 to that. Okay? So if I just save that, because I've got a feeling I don't need to save it, but if I go to press play, and it should load up a tutorial form 3, I should say. Now, if I do F on its own and press merge, it should put F down there. If I merge again so it kind of clears out. So FF, and then in here I do GG. Now I'm hoping when I press merge, it should put the FF in there and then followed by the GG. Yeah, it worked. I was really surprised by that. So basically, what you probably start to realize is, and what I'm trying to show you, is that there are loads of different things you can do with text boxes in particular. And you're probably thinking, oh my God, this guy's a genius. How does he know how to do all this stuff in Visual Basic? Well, what I've got to kind of help me out, and this is something I've made, I'm not going to kind of give other people credit for it. I've got a Visual Basic glossary or VB glossary, which I've made available for you to look at. So you can actually go through this and see what you can do with things. So arithmetic and logical operators, that's basically if you're adding things, checking if things are greater than, less than. In fact, just scroll through and have a look yourself. I know it says unit 14 there, but it should say unit 12. But when it comes to text boxes, look, there are loads of things you can do. Absolutely loads. And this isn't all of it. This is just the bits I found useful. There's also things you can do with the forms, like we did earlier, changing the background color. And again, you can have a look at that yourselves as well. Things you can do with buttons, hint, hint, and messages and input boxes, hint, hint as well. And if statements, which we'll come to at some stage. So what I want you guys to do now, then, now you've finished doing the 3 parts of this tutorial, go on to do the extension task, which you might find that VB glossary useful for you to help you out with that.